Hey folks, hello. I hope I'm audible. If someone can confirm. Thank you for the confirmation. I hope I'm clear and audible to everyone. Let's just wait for 2 more minutes so we have more people around. Thank you for the confirmation, Erinaik and Shriyansh. Enjoy some background music for some time. Okay, I feel it's the time to start. Hello all, I am Faisal Khatri. Welcome to my channel. And let me first discuss around the agenda for this session. So we will be going through the API testing using REST Assured with Java. And the agenda for this session would be setting up the project with REST Assured, setting up the RESTful Booker API. So we will be making use of the free APIs, that is RESTful Booker API. I'll be setting up that using Docker Compose in my local. So whatever I run, whatever the data I generate would be generated in my local machine only, and we won't be like hitting around any external servers out there. Next, we will also run around verifying the working of APIs using Postman, and then automating the get, post, put, patch, and delete API requests using REST Assured. So the next would be we will be performing assertions using REST Assured and running the API automation test using TestNG XML. So we have one comment from Yogesh Sangelkar. He's asking, is it an API testing or API test automation? So ideally, if you perform a kind of you may call it as API testing or you be test automation both. If you perform any kind of manual testing around APIs, we'll be using Postman tool. And if you automate that APIs for running the test automation suite, it would be using REST Assured automation framework. So without wasting much time, let's quickly begin. So the first step would be to start the Docker instance. And I for the easiness of this particular session, I have I have created the project, a sample project ideally, and all the necessary dependencies have been put in here. But before I move to this project, let me first show you the Docker composting. So currently the Docker application is up and running, and let me just quickly start the terminal and go ahead with the Docker compose command. So before I hit the Docker compose command, let me show you the YAML file that I have built. So this is the Docker compose YAML file for RESTful Booker APIs. So we will be using MW interingem slash RESTful Booker. This is the image name. We will be pulling this image from Docker Hub and assigning it to like 3001 port on my machine. And this particular uh, website will be up and running in my local instance. So to start the Docker instance, I'll be using the command docker compose -f, that refers to file, and that file is docker compose hyphen restfulbooker.yaml, and the next command would be up -d. So this will be running the command in the detached mode, so we won't be seeing any logs coming out in the console here. And this particular file is situated in my API testing slash hyphen rest assured folder. So I haven't given any other command, any other part to this file. It's just the file name. So let me hit the enter key, and we can see that the container is created and it's up and running. So let's check that out by running localhost 3001. So we can see that the website is up and running now in my local instance. There are API docs, the website is also there, the code is also there, and everything will be there. All these instances running on my local instance. You can see the URL localhost colon 3001 API doc and index.html. So you hold of this website is running in my local machine, and we will be making use of this URL, localhost URL, to hit the APIs as well. So there are different APIs. Let me give you an overview around these APIs. So because these are the ones that we will be using in our automation, as well as checking out with them with the Postman as well. So the first, there are many APIs like get booking IDs, get booking, create booking, update booking. So ideally, it's a backend of a booking manager that actually does some booking, creates a booking for a kind of an hotel application. And the first API that will be hitting around would be create booking. Now this API, you can see it's a post API. Similarly, there is a get booking API that actually will fetch the booking with the respective ID that we give in the URL. And this is a get API. Similarly, for updating the booking, we have two different APIs, like one called as update booking, the other called as partial update booking. So the update booking is ideally a put request, and this will make use of the whole payload that we need to like send for updating even a single field in the booking part. So ideally, update booking will make use of put request, and partial update will make use of patch request. So the basic difference between put and patch is, using put request, you ideally need to send the full payload for the requested update. Even if you want to like update a single field in the API, you will have to make use of you will have to send across the full payload. Full payload, I mean this data, this whole test data needs to be sent, this whole request payload needs to be sent in the put request, even if I just want to update the first name. So ideally, rest of the data will remain as it is, only the first name field will be changed and modified. Likewise, in partial update booking, that is a patch request, we won't have to send the whole payload in the request. It would be just the first name and the last name, or ideally the field that we need to update. So ideally, if I want to update only the first name and the last name in the booking that I have already done, ideally I need to supply a kind of a token, and then the first name and the last name field, whatever field I need to update, and accordingly that field will be updated, and we will be getting a kind of a success message, and we will update that. Ideally, after that would be, we will be using the delete APIs. So this delete API makes use of delete request, and it will ideally require only the ID, the booking ID, to be sent in the delete request. That will make use of the ID and delete the booking ideally. But the headers that are required are the content type and the cookie. That actually takes a token as a kind of an authentication part, and also returns a success message with 200. So the first API that I mentioned, we will be making use of like create booking API, and you can see there is a curl request here. So ideally, let's copy this and check out if this API is ideally working. As like I said, we will be running it in our local machine. So let me start Postman first. So before we move on to automation, like starting with the automation part, let's first check if the API is itself running or not successfully. So to check that, what we can do is, let me remove and delete all this. Just click on this import button and paste the curl that you just copied. So I just copied this curl request from this documentation, and I copied it in the pasted it in the import in this field here. And as soon as I imported it successfully, uh, as soon as I imported it successfully, you can check out like all the values have been updated in the respective fields in Postman. And also you can see the body is been updated here with the default values that were sent. But ideally, the URL, it has taken from the URL that was set in the curl. But ideally, we don't have to use this URL. We will be making use of the local host. So I'll just update the URL to localhost colon 3001. That is the URL that currently I'm using here. And after that, you can see the content type, the JSON and everything have been updated. So with the default data, let me just hit a send request to the send a post request, and I can see the status code as 200. Okay, the booking ID getting generated as 11, and the respective booking data that was sent from the request. So ideally, this confirms that the data that we have used and the API that we have used on the local host is ideally up and running fine. So let's make use of this same URL and the respective data and hit the post request in rest assured. So to start with rest assured, let's first move on to IntelliJ. So it won't be like as per the documentation. Let me also show you the request. Like it says the success message should have a status code 200, and the respective fields that are needs to be displayed in the request in the response should be like booking ID and the respective booking details here. And it says that it should be 200. Okay, the status code should be 200 and okay here. Ideally, it depends upon the developer or the documentation part. You can check it out. Ideally, the status code for creation is 201, but as per the documentation that is been mentioned here, it says it should be 200. And let's move on to the IntelliJ now. And so this project has been created. It's a Maven project, first of all. The next thing is in the pom.xml, I have put in some dependencies like TestNG, rest assured, uh, JSON core. This is required for the JSON data bind and playing around with the JSON file. If you don't put it around, like there would be some errors related to the JSON file, and ideally that is being handled by JSON data file. Hamcrest all these dependencies will be used for performing the assertions. I've also put in one dependency for data faker. This will be used to generate random fake data around for creating a post request or creating a booking around. Then there are some plugins like Maven plugin, compiler plugin, Surefire plugin. This will help in running the test successfully. And that's all in the pom.xml. But one more thing, I use normally properties file, that is the best practice to update the versions. So the TestNG version is the latest one, 7.8.0. Rest assured has a version of 5.3.2. Hamcrest is 1.3. Jackson data byte 2.15.2 and data faker 2.0.1. Similarly, the versions for the plugins have also been updated, and I've been using like Java 17 to run the test. Also, for running the TestNG XML that is been given in the configuration here, in the Maven Surefire configuration, you can see the placeholder for suite-xml. The value is updated in the uh, suite.xml placeholder that is in the properties section here. The value for this file name is testng.xml, but you can see there is no testng.xml file that is been created here. We can create it at the end when we will be running all the tests accordingly. But for time being, just understand that this is for the configuration part for the project point of view. One more thing, if you just want to check out the project settings, the SDK settings as well. So I am using SDK 17, Java 17 here. The modules are also updated. Language level is 17. The dependencies module is also related to 17 only. And similarly, the SDK path is also been updated as 17 here. So ideally, this confirms that we won't have any configuration related errors when we run the test. Now let's move to the test package and create a new class called RESTful Booker Test. The first API that we will be using will be like the create booking API. So let's create a test, public void test create booking. Okay, but the important part here is we need this test data to be supplied in the test, otherwise our post booking won't run. So we will have to like generate the test data for this first, and I have got an easy solution like from Java SE14. There is a record class that is available in Java. We can make use of this record class to generate the data. So this is how we can make use of record string. So we'll just pass on the data in the parameters. The first field name is first name. So let's check the documentation. It would be easier to go around. The first name, sorry, first name. Then I'm making use of the data type that is being provided here. The gym is actually a string, so I've used it as a string. Last name is also a string. Next we have total price. We can see it's a number 111. So ideally it would be an integer, but if you want to supply with long values you can use long as well, but ideally I'll go with integer here. You can see deposit paid. The value is set as true, so ideally we can confirm that this is a kind of a boolean, so we will be using it as a boolean. The next field is, now you can see it's a JSON file ideally, and this booking dates is ideally another object. So there is an object of test data first in the zeroth element, like the first name, last name, total price, all this relates to the object in the JSON file. But booking dates itself is an object that has two fields. So what we can do is we can create a new record of booking dates. Make sure you put in the same name that is given here, booking dates, and there are two fields inside here. Okay, so what we will do, I'll create a new record here, private record, and give the name as booking dates. And inside this we'll create two new fields. So the first field is check-in. So I'll be using it as a string only for in a to move ahead in a very simpler fashion. Check-in, and then string checkout. As simple as it is. But we have one more field at the end, that is additional needs, and that can be taken as a string as well. So we have already done with the uh, with the structure of the data, let's go ahead and then you make use of the rest assured framework now. So let me import this. Given, you can see the shortcut for this in Mac is like alt option and the enter key to statically import the method. And then what we do is given then post, sorry, before post we need to add body, and the body would be here we need to pass on user data. User data, the data equal to new user data. Now we need to actually pass on the data here. So I'll be using the first name as Faisal, last name as Khatri, and then the next is total price, that is an integer, so let's take it as 650. The next is deposit paid, so we will use it as true. It's a boolean value. The integer and the boolean values need not be surrounded with the double quotes, so we can just type in the values. After that we have booking dates, right? So we can see total price, deposit paid, and then booking date. So I'll call it as a new booking dates, and inside this I'll be just passing the check-in and the checkout values. So the check-in and the checkout values we can confirm from the documentation that uh, it is in the YYYY, MM, and DDE format. So let's give it as 2023 10/01 the check-in, and 2023 10 and 09 as checkout. Then next will be additional needs. So I'll just put in as dinner. Yeah, make it as final. User it. So ideally I've used record here. Record is being used because previous to records, like in the previous version prior to Java 14, what happened was we needed to create a new class, and in that class we needed to like create for calling out the data or the test data in the as a body, passing it the test data as a JSON format in the body. We needed to create a new class, then we needed to add the getter and setters, and then ideally add a constructor. In that constructor we needed to add the respective fields that we created as a getter setter, and then finally we call that class in the respective test method. And now all these have been discarded by using record. We can just simply define the record and the respective parameter that we need. So ideally when you use record you don't have to create a new class, add a constructor, create a getter and setter for the respective fields, private fields that you create. So all those boilerplate code needs to be discarded. You cannot, you just don't need any such kind of things to be added uh, in the project itself. Just you simply use record and pass on the data that you need. After body will, so coming to this test again, now I've already defined the body structure, and I've also used the like passed on the respective data that we need, and then we will be calling it when, then the respective post. So here post we need to supply the URL here. So our URL, I'll just copy this URL from the Postman itself. Then status code 200. Let's just first run this much only and see what happens with our test. But ideally one thing we are missing here is the header. We can see in the documentation here that there is a header named as content type, but in the description we can see two headers values. One is the content type, the default value would be application JSON, and then the accept. So let's add the header as well. And for adding the headers we just need to call on the header method from rest assured. The first will be the field name, like its content type, and then application slash JSON, again a header. The next one is accept, application slash JSON. That's it. So let me run this test now. We can see the test is passing, but we don't see anything coming up in the console. I want to check if there is any, what was the request that was sent, what was the response that came about. So what we can do is we can pass on log.all. This method, when it is passed before the actual HTTP methods like the post, get, put, fetch, or delete, it will actually log all the requests. And when it is like called after the post request, it will log all the sorry, the responses. It will be added after then log all. Okay, and let me run this again, but before running that I'll have to make some changes. Okay, let's run this. If there's an error, we will change the data. Okay, it runs fine, and we can see the booking ID 13 getting generated. The data that we created, that we sent from the request, was this. All data was sent, and this is the response that came in, and that response is ideally has a booking ID 13, but we haven't put it any assertions uh, in the response. We have just put one single assertion of status. Let's assert the body as well. And body, we will just check if the booking ID, so ideally let's take it from the response itself. So we need to be very much sure about the data that we are performing the assertion on. And here we will be making use of is method from matchers.js. Not null value. So if you check out the top of the code, you'll see two static methods have been imported. One is matchers is, and the other one is not null value. Now, the reason I'm using not null value here is I'm not sure what booking ID will be generated, because since it's an incremental number, I'm not sure about what all booking ID would be generated here. So that is the specific reason for using not null value. Not null value specifies that there should be some value. It should not be a null in the response when the booking ID field is generated. So ideally, this completes our test. If you want to test the data as well, let's check it in the next step. But previous to that, let's run this, if it runs successfully or not. You can see another booking ID getting generated, booking ID 14, and the test passes successfully. Now, if I want to verify the data, how do I do that? So how do I do that is just call the body method here, the field that you want to verify. So for example, there's a problem here is I'm passing in the hard coded value here. So let me do one thing. Just pass on the first name for time being as John, and the so let's verify this value. So I'll be passing on the first name. Okay, and from the response, first name, comma, we will be calling another matchers method equal to first name. Now you see the correlation between these two things. I defined one string called first name. The value is John. I've called the same string in the request. Like whenever the test data is generated, it will be John value that will be substituted here. And ideally, whenever the response comes in after the successful execution of the post request and the booking ID getting generated, it will also verify that the first name is equal to the name that I have put in the request. So that is equal to John. Okay, let me run this test again. It says this assertion is null. but I can see the value first name. Okay, there is a problem here. Let's check out the documentation again. When the response comes in, there is an object getting generated here. So let's check this. Let's evaluate this JSON. Online JSON evaluator. Let's put in this value here. JSON pathfinder. Okay, this is the correct path here. It's getting till the time it generates the website loads. I'll just show you, like there is a booking object. Inside that there are different fields like first name, last name, deposit paid, and again in the booking object there is a another in the booking object there is a booking dates object that comes in, and in that dates or booking dates object there are two fields, check in and check out. So ideally so this website is not loading anyways. I'll just show you. We need to put in the value like booking dot first name. So this will actually come and check out for the actual first name value here, and it won't give the error again. Let me run this again, and you can see that is getting passed successfully. This way, when it comes to JSON file, curly braces actually are called as objects. If there is a C bracket here, it refers to an array, and ideally if it's an starting with an array or if it's starting with an object, what you need to check out is if there is an object name given to it, you ideally need to place that object name, and after putting a dot, provide the actual field name. Now for example, if you want to check out the booking dates, so the values would be again dot body booking dot booking dates dot check-in equal to, let's put in the same value, and run this again. And we can see the test getting passed. Now just to verify this, let me change this to some other value like 2. The ideal value, the correct value is 2023 10/01. But to verify that our assertion is working fine, I've just changed it to 2nd October. Let's run this test again. The test should fail here, and you can see the expected value was 2nd of October, but actual the value comes from the booking ID is 1st of October. So ideally that means the JSON path that we provided here is correct. Now one more thing, the next API that we will be talking about is the get API. So let me write a test first. Public void test get booking, and in this we would be again calling given dot when dot get. Here let's go to the get booking API here. Okay, the values would be the same. So ideally you can see the web server name, booking is the endpoint, and then finally we need to provide the booking ID. So ideally our last booking that we generated was 18. So let's by default put it as 18. Sorry, let's copy the same thing and put it as 18 hard coded for time being. Then status code, let's check out the status code for again it's 200. Okay, so it should be 200. Okay, but I again we are missing two more things here. When ideally when it runs, it will give you like the test pass successfully, but we won't be able to check out what all data got printed. So again we can put it as like log all, and after then log all. But there are some headers as well, as I see here. It's just one header called accept. So let's put it here. And the value should be like application slash JSON. Okay, let's run this again. We can see that the request method is get. The response is the URI that was it was like around, it was around like 18. The request URI localhost 3001 booking, and then the 18 accept is the header, and then the response that got generated. We can see the data coming up successfully here. But you can see there are two different problems here. One is we need to repeat the header and the log all things again and again. And also if you want to like cut this short, we can make use of the rest assured configuration that I can show you up in the upcoming videos as well. But for time being, since we are running out of time, I'll just move on to the next test. That would be for updating the request. Yes, there is a way to reuse this these things again. But before I do that, let me check out. Let me write the test for updating the booking as well, and we'll get rid of all those things. Key one, then the header. You can see the update booking also is a similar kind of thing. There's an additional thing here, like the token, cookie token equal to ABC. This is an additional header that we put in here. But to generate this token, there is another API that we need to hit. That is ideally the auth API. So before we move ahead with the update booking, we will ideally have to write a new test for the token. Token generation ideally. So public void test auth token. Again here we can see there are two fields, username and password. Though this is a demo API and it's also running in my local machine, I will be using the same values in a hard coded fashion here, but there are other ways as well to pass on some of the values as a is a secret as well. Okay, so I'll ideally have to create new record. Let me add a new record for auth token. Let's give it a name as auth data. There are two values here, string username and then a string password. Okay, the auth data, oh sorry, it should be in caps. Auth data equal to auth data. The data would be like the username is admin, the password is password 123. Let's put a final here. Again you can check out there are two headers that are required. Only one header that is required, that is content type, and ideally when the response comes in, it will return a token. The field would be token, and ideally the value would be the value that we will be needed to like run it in our test. Yes, I'll be uploading that project to GitHub as well. And there's one already uploaded project in my GitHub profile. You can check it out, rest-assured-examples. That data is also provided in the that project is also available live on GitHub. You can check that project as well. I will be updating this project in short time after this session. So let's move on with writing the test. Given dot body refers to auth data, and then the header refers to the content type here. Content type, there's another way as well to write the content type. You can directly call on the content type dot json, since it is in a JSON format. And the next will be uh, given body header. The next will be when, then the post again we need to put in the url is the same one. We'll be copying it from the existing test. The only change you can see here is, instead of booking, the endpoint is auth, correct? Then again we will be putting log all, then status code. Before that, again log all for logging all the response, and the status code here is again 200. But the only point here is we don't want to like consume the data. We want something to be returned from this as well. We want the uh, auth token, the token value to be returned here. So instead of making it as void, let's return a string here, and then string token value equal to 200 dot extract. The value is token dot s string. Body token. I think I'm missing up something here. Hmm. Oh, sorry. Let's run this. Why is it not taking up this thing here? Let's see. What is? Okay, let's do something. Path. Let me run this again. Just checking it. Okay. Let's add an assertion as well. The same assertion that we added earlier is not null value. We don't know what token would be generated as is a random characters. So it's better to put it as a not null value here. I'll remove this test from here and it as sorry. Okay, now let's move on to the update booking. Yeah, definitely I can see one comment coming up from Hasmukh mentioning like should be next session should be around refactoring of this project. I'll definitely try to uh, cover that up in the next session, since it would be too lengthier session here if we go ahead with the refactoring part as well. So coming to the update booking part, there are three headers that we need to update, like content type, accept, and cookie. And then there are rest of the test data that we already generated using user data record. So given, then header would be, let's copy the header to save time from the post request itself. Let's copy, in fact, the whole of the post itself. Given, okay, header, and then there's a new header called as cookie. The value is token equal to, and then plus we have this auth token. Okay. Here we need to put in the booking ID as well. So we will be putting the booking ID as 18 here, but let's generate user data, update user data equal to new user data. Since we need a new user data here to update, let's put it as Joseph, and then do. Next is total price 876, again true. Booking dates, the first one would be 2022 901. Let's update whole of the record. Then and then finally breakfast. Okay, here we'll have to call the body as well. That would be update user data. Cool. And let's run this. So the test data for booking ID 18 says status code 404. Let's check out. So the first it called the auth API. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. It should be a put API. Created the we need a cookie and that should be a token value. So I have called the auth token method first here. So that is the reason why if you see in the response in the logs, you can see the first API that was hit was the auth API, where it consumed the username and the password values and generated the token. Now this token value was used as an header here in the put API for booking ID 18, and you can see the whole of the test data has been updated here in the response that we receive here. But there is a difference here. In the post API there was booking ID, but in case of put there is no booking ID that comes in. So you can check it out in the response as well. There's just a single data. There's only data that comes in. There's no booking ID that gets returned in the response. So this is how the post works. Similarly, we'll just check out the patch as well. We can make use of the same auth token method. We can just recall that method here. Now you can see there are only, it's the same thing with the put API as well. But the thing here is there are 3 headers and it also requires a cookie. But it's all up to you what all field that you want to update. You can update that values here. So let me just write a test quickly for this. Public void test update partial booking. Okay, let's use the same data here, but the thing here is we in case of user data we will have to pass on all the data that we generated using post and put. But if you need like only the random fields or the required data, we can generate a new record first. So let me generate a new record for partial update, and here I will be updating only a few fields. Like let's take in, let's update the total price and the additional needs. Total price, sorry, total price is all smalls, and additional needs as well. Okay, should be partial update data just for the identification mark. Let's first call this and generate the data. Partial update data equal to new partial update data, and here we will be passing on the required fields only. So let's do it as 900, and then the additional needs like lunch. So previously what we passed was The total price was 876, and the additional leads was breakfast. Now this has been updated to total price as 900, and then the lunch. So I've made a mistake here. While creating the test data, I've put it as a string. I need to update it to integer since total price is an integer. Yes. Okay. Let's do the same thing. Like I'll be copying the same thing, but this time I'll make sure that it update it to patch. Here it would be partial data. This should be final. I'll update it as patch. Sorry. The booking ID remains the same. Similarly, we can add an assertion also here. The partial data, the additional lead is changed to lunch. So let's do that. Dot body. Now, when the patch request is updated, let's check out the response, how it comes. Like it comes as an object only, so we don't have to add any other value. Like we just can update it as additional needs and then equal to, let's do the same thing like we did in the post. Additional needs equal to lunch, and then update it as the actual value here. Final. And then here we'll call it as. Now the reason I'm doing that is since I'm using the same value twice in the test, so it's better I define a local variable and then update the value there, so this way I can reuse the same variable again and again instead of typing the hard coded values out there. So this is updated. Now let me run the test to see the patch request, and we can see the values getting updated successfully. The additional lead comes to lunch, and the value for the data has been total price has been updated to 900. Now the last test that comes here is the delete test. For that we need to call in the delete method, but as we see in the delete booking, there's no response body coming in. It's just a status method that is being displayed, and it is updated as 201. The status code is 201. So we'll just check the verify the status code, but additionally I'll tell you one more stuff that you can do after the deletion part is completed. Test delete booking, just to verify that we deleted the booking successfully. So what we can do here is given dot header, and in this request there are just two headers, the token and the content type. Additionally, okay, there is no application JSON for accept field as well. So what I can do is content type dot JSON, then again the header, this time it would be cookie, and then so token equal to plus auth token dot when delete, then status code 201. Though this is as simple as possible. I'm not logging in anything here because we don't see any data coming in the request as well as the response. So let me run this test. But the thing here is we need to pass on the URL. And it says while passing in the URL, we need to pass on the booking ID that actually we want to delete. So let's delete this ID number 18 only. Sorry. Let's run this test again. And we can see the token only getting generated here, but we don't see anything coming as in the response for the delete, since we haven't put it any log for that. One more check we can do whether the booking was deleted successfully is write a new test like test deleted booking. Now what we can do here is we can just call up the get booking API again with the deleted ID, booking ID. And this time we'll be calling the same API again. So it should be failing here since that booking is already deleted, and it should receive 404. So ideally what should I do here is I'll be just changing the status code to 404. That is the reason why I've written a new test, because in my previous test I have called the status code as 200 to verify that the booking was generated successfully, but here I'm just verifying that the booking was deleted successfully, so it's 404 here. So ideally you can check there's no record found, there's nothing found, it shows as 404. And this is how our test runs successfully. Now what one more thing, just a bit of cleanup. I'm just writing a config here. Spec builder. I have already written it in the previous. I'll just copy that up to save the time. Just explain you a bit around this and how we can get rid of the data that repeated data that we have used. So there's a request specification interface. This interface, using this interface, we can set up the base URI, add the header, whatever header that is being repeated, duplicate headers, and also add up the logging filters for the request and the response logging. And the same way we can use the response specification as well. For time being, I've just added a new response specification where I'm just checking that the expected response time for every API should be less than 20,000 milliseconds. And then we need to actually set up the request and the response specification. I'm not sure. Yeah, it runs basically fine. The problem is, I think there's a change in the version 5.3.2. They've made some specific changes. Let's check it out on the Rest Assured website. Rest Assured request specification. Documentation says that just a short dot request specification equal to default request specification and response specification equal to default response specification. So instead of doing this thing here, let's ignore this. Let's use this request specification builder. Add header, and we'll remove all the header types from here. Content type, content type dot JSON. Okay, then again dot add header. The next one is accept. So this is the common headers that we have. Okay. Then the next common thing is I think these are the headers only that are the common things. Let's see if there is something related to this is not the one. Respect. Okay. Request specification. So this is the usage of IntelliJ. You don't have to write much of the code. It normally shows you all the steps to cut short your code. So before we move on to the next steps and add the spec builder everywhere in the test, let me first check out if this runs successfully. Content type dot JSON. Instead of that, let's do it as application. So JSON. Something failed. Internal server error. Spec. Given and then spec. Okay, I had placed it in the wrong position. The spec method should be after the given method. So ideally what we can do is remove all these headers and then use spec instead of it. Spec builder, and let's check this. So the new booking ID that we got generated is 20. Let's update it in the test. In next session I'll be organizing and clearing up all this data. We will also use the, instead of hard coded data, I'll also show you how we can generate data using data faker library in Java. That actually makes this things more crisp and clear. We don't have to write so much boilerplate code. Spec builder, I'm not changing anything with the cookie header, since every time the new auth token will be generated, it's not a common one. That is the reason why I'm not updating it in the spec builder, since this token is being called only by put, like the update booking, partial update booking, and delete booking APIs only. This particular cookie header is not required by the post and the get booking APIs. So ideally, if I try to pass on this header, we might face some failures in those respective APIs as well. Deleted booking as well, and in the auth as well. Let's run the test one by one. Uh, but before that, we'll have to update booking. This should be 20. Again, this should be 20. And then the delete booking 20 as well. So we have already ran the test booking. Let's do a get booking now. And we can see the data headers getting passed in successfully. Now updating the booking. I think I haven't removed this header from here. Let's remove and then spec builder. We can see the values passed as well. The data passing successfully. Similarly for partial booking as well. And then finally the delete booking. Oops. 403. The problem here is the problem with the 403 part is the authentication. I removed the authentication part from the delete booking. That is the reason why the token was not supplied and we received a 403. Now let's pass on the cookie value that actually provides the token value, and let's run the test. So the test should pass now. 403 ideally 401 refers to the login credential is invalid. 403 refers that something with regards to authentication is missing. So you need to make sure that you have provided the correct authentication, and those token and everything that you pass on is valid one. There are certain values that we can update uh, with the request specification, but I think there should be some values that we can add with a as a part of filters as well. Let me check. Dot add, sorry, add filter, new request logging filter, and then add filter, new response logging filter, and then so ideally when we add that request and response logging, let's remove this log all as well from everywhere that we have put in. So that will remove the additional duplicate code that we have put in the test. It's a kind of cleanup. So whenever I write some test or whenever I do kind of testing, I start writing the test in a very raw format or a very rough format, and then eventually I keep on evaluating the framework or whatever test that I've written to pass on them some values, and then do the refactoring and cleanup. Because once you know that the test is fine and running everything as expected, then you can go ahead and make the changes one by one by making the refactoring in the test as well. So this way you understand that previously your test was running, then whatever changes that you have done is actually adhering to the respective framework, is it's actually working in line with the changes that you have done. So ideally don't make it like a hush hush kind of a thing. Don't rush for it. Eventually write your test, see everything is passing, make some changes, and then eventually go ahead and make the changes like one by one, so you understand what you have changed, where it is failing, and ideally you can go ahead and fix that thing instead of this just like messing things up and then nothing works. That brings upon another kind of frustration. So let me run the test again, and I can see that the request logging is also there, response logging is also there uh, for the test booking as well. Okay, so there was a problem with the ID. So ideally, one test is running. That means the request and the request response both are working fine. Let me check. Get booking fail. So ideally, it should be something around like 20. Let me give it as 21 and then run it. Okay, it ran fine. I'll just simply run the last test, that is the delete one, by giving a test 21. I haven't provided anything related to the logging part here, but we have provided values in the spec builder. So, okay, so it's 404. That was the other test I ran accidentally. The test where we were checking if the values have been deleted successfully or not. So I'm just running the test again for deleting a booking, and then we'll run the test to check out it returns 404. So you can see the delete test running fine, and you can see a value coming in as created. This is a kind of a bug that can be reported, because when you create when you delete something, your ideal value in the response should not be created. That gives a incorrect interpretation to the user. Ideally, let's run the last test. Let's test deleted booking, and that runs successfully. So it eventually returns 404, which means that the booking has been deleted successfully. Now there are some more changes that we need to do this test, like we need to add a testng.xml, and ideally if you are running an end-to-end test, there are some values refactoring part, like this particular create booking test should ideally returning a kind of a booking id. That booking id can be used with the get booking, update booking, and respective partial and delete booking test as well. So we don't have to manually go ahead and update the urls, as well as we can add the base uri as well. So that can be updated in the test as well. So let's see, set base, set base URI. So ideally, if I update the URI here, I can just remove this and set it here, and then eventually call the respective methods only. This is also will not be required. So just to save the time, I'll just be running this create booking test again, and you can see the URI was passed using the spec builder, and just we hit the booking API end. Similarly, the same things can be removed from the get update and the partial update and the delete test as well. And ideally, things can be made more cleaner, and refactoring can be done for them as well. Let me show me one more thing, like running the test using TestNG. So I have uh, already have this test here. I'm just copying the TestNG file, like add a new file, name it as testng.xml, and paste it here. Don't need this. There are no listeners added as well. Like we can add listeners to the test as well. We won't be running this as parallel. And the name of the class is com dot. It's not com. It's io dot github dot mfsl3 dot test. And I'll just be running two tests in here. Okay, the one test only, because the thing is we are actually over time, but just give me 5 more minutes to make it clean and run the test using TestNG XML, since that was a part of the agenda. So our TestNG XML is ready. It's just simple, like we need to provide the test suite name, we need to provide the test name, the class name. The class name is RESTful Booker Test. Inside that, we want to run the test for this particular method, test create booking. And let me just right click here, but make sure before you right click, make sure in settings, and then you go to plugins, installed, and check out TestNG. In this TestNG, it should not be in a disabled state. It should be enabled. This should be ticked, and this button should be showing it as disabled. That means it is already enabled. Now, if I want, I can go ahead and disable this, but we will not be disabling. This is just a setting that I'm showing in case if your IntelliJ TestNG package is disabled, you need to enable it from here. It TestNG comes as a bundled up in IntelliJ. You don't have to like go ahead and install anything in IntelliJ with regards to TestNG. So my TestNG is enabled. I can just right click on this file and click on run. So ideally it will run the test. So eventually going ahead, like running the test manually from the test class, it's no more required. I can just refactor my test, and ideally create it in such a way that one or the other test runs successfully. Now the only reason that is acting as a blocker here is I have not provided the dynamic value for this booking ID. So this will not get updated, and it will eventually start calling the previous IDs, and the test will fail. So in the next session, I will be showing you how to refactor all this stuff and run the test in using TestNG XML. Also, we can also make sure we can use GitHub Actions to run the test in CI/CD in parallel state. So that was all for this session. I hope you enjoyed this session, and please provide me your feedback on the YouTube comment. I will be like uploading this particular project in the GitHub and sharing upon the links in the comment section as well as in the description of this video. It was a very nice opportunity you people gave me to provide you some extensive knowledge on the REST Assured framework and the REST testing, API testing using REST Assured. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again. Bye.